Video games have become an ever-increasing part of people's lives. You probably seen them on TV, on the internet, or played some with a few friends or family. Me, Natalie, and N999, my two split personalities, we've played them since we were 4 years old, and we love them. But as I grew up, I wanted to know more about them. You know, what goes into it. So after a bit of light digging, we found out what makes them tick. So today we're going to go generally and very quickly explain the three big things of games: gameplay, coding, storyboarding. So let's jump right into gameplay. Gameplay is how we even know what genre a game is. Without that, we would know what a strategy from an RPG. They'd all be the same, but their gameplay makes them entirely different. Like stated in The Beginner's Guide to Video Games, which quoted here. When you think about a game's rules, plots, objectives, challenges, and how the player is meant to interact with them, you're thinking about gameplay. Two examples is This Is the Police 2. A slow-paced strategy game where you need to get the right cops for the right job and send them all on calls before the calls go away. So it's a bit more of a thinking man's game. A little bit of strategy involved. Where then you have Aliens Colonial Marines. A very fast-paced shooter game. You don't really need to think a lot in that. You just need to shoot the bad men and figure out how to not get yourself killed while fighting off hordes of aliens or human enemies. Now, if gameplay is how we even know what a game is, then coding is how it makes it all work. So, here's an example of coding. This light right here. If I was to turn it off, like so, and turn it back on, coding in a video game would have even told me that I could interact with this light, and how to interact with it. Coding would have told the light that it can be turned on and off. Same with the light. Movement, dialogue, actions, anything you do in a game needs coding to tell you how to work. I can't walk through this dresser, of course. In a video game, coding would also tell me I can't go through this. Trying as hard as I can't do it. That's what coding is. Aliens Colonial Marines is a very good example of poor coding. The game in general is a mess. But one letter messed up the entire alien enemy. In the game, they're supposed to be able to use a wide range of movements, jumping through windows, attacking from ceilings, hiding in vents, and attacking from shadows, because they're all black, of course. They can't do those. They just run at you in a straight line for you to gun down like they're nothing. And that is because one letter, as found by Polygon and a few others, the aliens essentially, because that one letter in their coding is off, they can't see these options. They just don't know they're there. So, that should tell you how important that is. One letter can entirely change how a unit works. So, if we can see how coding and gameplay are basically the life and death of a game, depending on how good either of those are, how do you even know what type of game you're going to make, right? Well, that's when storyboarding comes in. Storyboarding is something all pieces of medium uses, from TV to movies. Games weren't the first to use this, but they're still a vital part of it, especially now that games are becoming a lot more story-driven. I highly doubt that Pong had a storyboard, of course, but games nowadays, usually, they have a little bit of a story. And even if they don't, storyboards are probably still used to, in fact, know where the game's going to go. I sat down with a friend of mine, Zed Newman, who has storyboarded for a few of his small projects on some friends' games. Doesn't know if those were released. And is currently working on a story-based horror game known as Project Poseidon. And I got to sit down with him and ask a few questions about storyboarding with him. And I'm very thankful that he took the time to do this for me. So, thank you for that. I wanted to ask when he thinks storyboarding should even happen. And he said, I feel like a storyboard should always come first. You should always know where your story is going before you start coding for it. If you don't know what you're doing, then the coding will end up a mess. I say a coder should wait, but if you don't have a rough idea, you're going to mess it up, at least in my opinion. I agree. You should have a rough idea. If you don't, how are you supposed to plan for it, right? I then asked why he decided to start making the game, which he said it was for a friend's thesis, senior thesis in gameplay, game design, yeah. They didn't end up making that deadline, but he did use a piece of the game for his thesis, and now they're just making the game for fun, see if people like it. Always admirable, always nice to see. And the important thing, I asked, if someone was just starting off, what advice would he give them? To which he said, don't sweat the specifics. Get your rough stuff first. If you worry about the small stuff, you're going to drain yourself. Get your broad idea. I've storyboarded a few games already as a substitute, and most of the time it's because someone burned themselves out on the details first. Yeah, don't sweat the details if you don't even really have an idea of where you're going. That's true for anything. Books, TV, anything. But in a game where you probably have to pump those out very quickly, especially if you're a larger studio, yeah, you can't just sweat you have to have your broad idea first. You know where you're going. So, it's funny how it's so easy, it's so simple to explain these concepts, but yet it takes years to make these games. And then a few hours just to beat. Thank you all for your time. I've been Nathan, Natalie, and N999.